Welcome to The Healthy Advisor, a podcast from Wealth Management focused on advisors, personal well-being, and healing. I'm Diana Britton, Executive Editor of Wealth Management, and in this podcast, we explore some of the struggles and personal development issues facing advisors and financial services professionals, and how to get to a place of healing for mind, body, and spirit. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Healthy Advisor podcast, and thanks for joining us. As you may know, this is the podcast focused on financial advisor health and well-being, and today's guest definitely has some insights to share. His name is Jamie Hopkins. He's the CEO of Bryn Mawr Trust. Jamie, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, Diana. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. We'll have a fun time today.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. And this is perfect timing. This month, Jamie's new book, Your Retirement Sketchbook, which is co-authored by Bonnie Treichel, partner at Endeavor Retirement, hits bookstores. And the book, it offers a fresh visual approach to planning retirement across 8 phases, combining practical guidance with behavioral insights. A lot of the book is focused on understanding your money story and recognizing how past experiences shape financial decisions and retirement planning. And so I want to talk about your past experiences, Jamie, and how it's shaped the work that you do today and make that connection with your own personal experiences. But here's just a short excerpt from the book. My dad passed away in a job site accident when I was 8 years old. This has impacted so many things in my life. My desire to be a dad, a sense I would die early, a fear of heights, and a scarcity mindset for years around money. But it also told me to prepare, have life insurance, hug my loved ones close, and make sure I live life to the fullest because it is a temporary and beautiful thing. And so I know you talked about, Jamie, that this was, when your dad passed away, was your first transformative money memory. And there's a whole section of the book on money memories. So take me back to when you were 8 years old, and how did your father's passing play out?
Yeah, it's always one of those stories that every time I tell it, I think about different elements of it. But it was a 8-year-old boy. I'll actually tell the whole thing today because I remember more about that day than you remember about most other days. That I don't know if I remember another 8-year-old day. But
Sure. Yeah.
I talked to my dad in the kitchen that morning, and he was a construction worker and did mostly gutter work, which is hanging off the side of the houses. And I think it's one of the top 2 or 3 most dangerous jobs still today. I think the only thing that really ranks above it is actually that deep sea fishing. Like, it's super dangerous work. And I talked to him in the morning that morning, and I went to school and he went to work, and it was wintertime. We lived in Baltimore. And during the day, what a lot of people have probably experienced this winter, it was raining or icing, and he was coming down a ladder on a job site, and it rained and then had frozen, temperatures dropped, and aluminum ladders freeze faster than roofs do. And so he was coming down and slipped and fell and passed away. And so I remember getting the call to come down to the office. My aunt was there, and she had just said, "Hey, your dad was in an accident." And
Mm.
I do remember at 8, the only thing I knew of an accident, though, was like car accidents. So my mind was like he was in a car accident.
Mm.
And went home, and I was like up in my room and waiting for the gutter truck to come back. And somebody drove it home. I don't know who drove it, but it pulled in, and I was like looking at the truck, and I was like, oh, well, the truck doesn't look bad. So he's probably fine. And I went downstairs into the kitchen, and it's one of those surreal moments where, I just said something like, hey, the truck looked fine. So dad's okay. And I don't think anyone even told me right then that he was gone, but I knew it, right? I think everybody was crying and all those things, and he had passed away. And then probably the next couple weeks is just a complete blur, and you just remember crying and funeral and priests and family. And but that was like the experiences, like an 8-year-old who went to school and came home and dad was gone. And it's a very, like, at one moment like the world changes versus a slow change. It was one of the disruptive, explosive changes. You don't know a lot about business or anything else at 8, but like I knew enough that my mom helped run the company and my dad did the work like on the houses. And without him, like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And so that whole idea of, and people helped us out. And my mom's really my hero because she had a different view and had to figure out like how to take care of everybody and ran that company for the next 40 years really, and gave all of my sisters and I great opportunities. And she's amazing and an entrepreneur. And but that was really for me, like I was scared as an 8-year old. Your dad's gone and the worker is gone, and that's a very scary place to be.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, like, in the years after, that's a very traumatic thing for a child to go through. How did you get through that scary time? Was there any support or coping mechanisms that helped you get through it?
Yeah, I think my family is a big part of it. And my mom was great. And we've talked about it later on. It didn't talk about it as much back then, but she had this sense that was very different than mine, that she had to figure out how to take care of everybody, that she had been an entrepreneur. So she was going to figure out how to continue the business and make money. And that she had kids relying on her. She always said, I didn't have a choice. Like you had to figure it out. And she did. And so she was great. I do think that sports for me were probably very important, although I can't point at one particular moment in time, but they provided structure and routine, and you could go focus on some other goal that didn't have to do anything about maybe the sadness you were feeling at life and feel the sense of achieving something and win. So I played a lot of sports and did that all the way through college, which was a big part of me, and for a long time was like a big defining aspect of more so how I felt like I portrayed my values and commitment into the world, less so than the actual sport outcome. And so those things were good. And then my closest sister in age, Katie, and I were very important to each other during that
Mm.
time frame and supporting each other. She was little. I think that she would have been 7 at the time. And so she got stuff too, but it felt like we have a very deep bond going through all that together.
Yeah, having siblings at a time when you have a parent pass away, it's like having that nobody else has that shared experience. It can really help. I know that that event with your father and with your mother and the money management that followed led you into the wealth management industry and focused specifically on retirement planning. You've been a pioneer in the retirement planning space. Tell me how those events led you into the industry.
Yeah, it really did. It send me into this profession in this industry. And the funny part about that is you talked about going through events or experiences with somebody else and that shared experience. And I'll talk about my mom and then how it got me here because she's really the pivotal one through all this. And like a lot of people, my mom is my hero. I look up to her and I'm thankful every day that she gave me all these opportunities and was a great mom and loved and cared for us. And one of the things I saw later on in life, though, was where do people like my mom, not just my mom, but where do, non college graduated
Mhm.
construction workers in the trade services, where do they go for advice and support? And the short answer is generally speaking, the industry we're talking about does not serve them. They don't have 401ks, they don't have pension plans, they don't have a lot of workplace benefits. People just aren't servicing that market outside of maybe some of the mutual companies have done a decent job at getting life insurance and disability to that market, but not really the planning and investing and saving for retirement side that we would hope everybody feels entitled to. And so what you also see in that world, which is a lot of my aunts and uncles and family members are either in the restaurant or construction world, yeah, they're all very, I would say, distrustful of this industry. They don't feel like it was built for them. They don't feel like they're welcome in it. And they do have a sense of we don't trust banks where I work or even attorneys or investment professionals because they've never been there for us. And so I had this whole sense of, but that shouldn't be the case. Like they should have this ability to get advice and better planning and the right amount of life insurance And so I got set on this pathway. And my mom, on the flip side, though, like she did a really good job running a business and saving cash and using that to give us opportunities. But the investment world always felt like kind of one step further away, right? Like I
Yeah.
could get her part of the way there, but not fully to trust this industry and profession. And it felt foreign to her. And then I just happened to be clerking in the appellate division, and I worked on one of Bernie Madoff's cases. And I saw this a whole abuse of trust and the abuse of the systems. And it's situations like that, though, that eroded trust for millions of Americans in financial services. And I wanted to be on the opposite part of that. I wanted to make retirement more secure for millions of Americans like my mom, who is my why and did so much for me and my sisters. And I have a great stepdad later, too. I always feel like sometimes, I know we talked about this before, but I always have to give a shout out because he was a great influence on me later in life too. And sometimes I do these and don't bring them up, and then people are like, "But I've met your dad," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's Eric. That is my dad now."
Yeah. That's great that you have such a great relationship with him. And I think that you've really made a huge impact in that space that you were just talking about. You've got the book coming out. You've been a pioneer with retirement planning designation in the industry. Something else I know you mentioned in the book and was another pivotal moment in your life. I know you talked about how your dad's passing also impacted your desire to be a dad yourself. And you have 3 kids now, right?
I do, yeah, girl and 2 wonderful boys.
That's awesome. I have a girl and a boy as well, but I know that you had this pivotal moment when you were working at Carson Group. You were a managing partner of Wealth Solutions at Carson, and you were about to hop on a flight to Omaha, where Carson is based, and your son came up to you. What did he say?
Yeah, my son came up to me. I was standing in our hallway right by the door. I had the bag packed. The Uber car was outside, and I try to say goodbye to them before I go on trips. And he just came up and said, "Dad, you love work more than us." And he's 6 years old at the time, but got the notion that I was gone a lot. And that was one of those comments that just don't really know how to respond to it. And it's probably a whole conversation with the 6 year old that's going to ask why 14 times. And like, I have to like walk out the door. And yeah, that was just really hard for me. And it was one of those things that I've had some people say, "Wow, that's impressive that you made a change." But life opens doors all around the same time, I think. And there was a great opportunity that I had passed on here to come lead Bryn Mawr Trust, and wasn't gonna. Some recruiter had reached out, and I had no interest at the time, and loved Carson and Ron, now Amani, and Burt White, the CEO, and a lot of my friends, Aaron Shaben and Terry, and I'm very close with all these people. And it's hard to like then make this change, but I did know that like one of the things I lost was like, not too much older than him, I never got to see my dad again. And I was like, I don't want to live that. I want to be around for sports and play catch with him and coach these 8-year-olds running around on soccer fields where you're just all crowded around the ball. And that was super important to me. And just the life worked out for me. I feel very blessed on that I got to work at such a special place in this growth period that was Carson at the time. And there's stuff I miss about it and the people. And I still talk to a lot of people that are there, and they've done a great job, and they're perfectly fine without me. But I got the ability to be home and in my area. And you mentioned it earlier too. Like I've had this bigger impact, interestingly enough, on like broader based aspects of the profession, like RICP designation. I was one of the co-creators, but I didn't spend very much time in like my own community. So like here, I was a stranger outside
Mm.
Philadelphia because I was always on the road and traveling. And so I've gotten to be more present here and local and driving around and impacting our local charities and nonprofits in the Philadelphia area and doing pro bono work here. And that's been really fun over the last 2.5 years. And be part of an amazing team, but it was 1,000% the right decision. Probably even if I didn't even have a job, I should have made a change at that moment and gone and been around whatever that change was. But it was the right thing for my life to be around my kids more and not always be away and on the road.
Yeah, I had a somewhat similar experience because like COVID changed everything for me in terms of I before COVID I was living in Long Island and commuting into Midtown Manhattan every day. And I didn't get to see my kids until late at night when I got home. It was an hour and a half commute each way. I barely saw my kids, and except on the weekends. And after COVID, I became a full remote worker. And now I actually moved to California. So I'm definitely not commuting into Manhattan anymore. But now it's like I get to go to my kids' soccer practices and dance practices and be more involved in the school activities. And it's really great to have that community and to be more involved and who the kids are that they're going to school with and everything. So it just having that flexibility is key. How did that flexibility, that proximity to your family, how does that kind of relate back to your dad, or does it?
Yeah, I also want to say kudos to you for sticking with that change and embracing it. And you said it perfectly, though, right? Like you get to.
Yeah.
Like it's not that you have to, like you get to. And I think it's beautiful. And I try to remind myself of that even when it's like hard stuff sometimes. And I'm like, I don't have to go to work. Like I get to go to my work and I love it. And I get to go to my kids' sports. I drove my son to swimming last night and I get to do that. I don't have to drive him. Like it's a blessing to be able to do that. But yeah, I didn't, my dad worked really hard and he wasn't at very many things, even when he was alive when I was little. So I don't have very many memories of those things, not during at least this kind of 5-year period of like probably 8 to 13. It's just my mom. And so that idea of having like being the dad that's there and coaching, and that's been probably the thing that I have been most, I don't know, pleased with. It's actually on my goals. I'm a big goal setter. As part of my change, like I wanted to be able to coach them. So I've coached my daughter's basketball team. I'm coaching my son's basketball team right now. I coach soccer and football in the fall, which was way too much because it was
Yeah.
like 5 practices and games a week. And then my executive support person, Renee, was amazing. And people have asked me, like, how did you do that? I gave her the schedules and was like, Renee, you can move literally anything to make sure I'm at all this. So if it's a travel, if I can't go speak somewhere, it doesn't matter, right? You can move anything, so I'm gonna be at all these, and that was really great that I couldn't have done it by myself. So it always takes community, but it was the, like, lack of some of those experiences for me early on that I wanted to make sure that my kids don't miss that, and that was a
Mm.
big driver.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, I always tell people like my whole life is youth sports now. And I've actually thought about I should start a podcast, like the Soccer Moms and Dads podcast or something, because there's so much to talk about. There's a lot of I don't want to say politics, but just like there's a lot of issues in youth sports. But anyways, that's like a totally different tangent I'm going down. But I will
I love this
say
tangent.
I will say that growing up, my dad coached my basketball team, and that is my dad is no longer alive, but that is like a memory that I have that will never leave me. And I think I took advantage of it at the time, or I took it for granted at the time.
Mhm.
And I feel like maybe my kids take it for granted a little bit as well. But like I said, that memory will stay with your kids forever and be proud of that. So I just wanted to say that. But I know another fear that you said came up with your dad's death was this fear of dying early. And that makes sense because I think he was around your age when he passed away. Are you still battling with that fear?
Yeah, so I think I'm a couple years older now, but yeah, probably like 3 years ago, I would have been like exactly his age when he passed away, which is a wild thing to think about. The I think part of it is you go through life and you're shaped by the experiences that you have. And my experience was the person who I would probably aspire and grow up to be the most like and look like and all those things passes away in their late 30s. So you're okay, like that'll probably be me too, because I don't have another experience of that not occurring. And so that was definitely something that's been on my mind my whole life. And I think I'm a little bit better with it. But what I do always just, I think about it a lot. I talk about it. It's just that and you had it in the opening was the temporary nature of our existence on this planet and that it's very brief. And I love sunrises in a similar sense because they happen like in a flash and they're there and they're up and then it's daytime. And I always think about that as part of our life is these things are beautiful, but they're beautiful because they are temporary. And I still think about that I might not be here tomorrow. And so to make sure that you don't leave a lot of these things, you don't go to bed upset and angry with your spouse and your loved ones or your mom because
Mm.
you don't know if you will get another chance to say you're sorry. And so I do try to live with that. I'm not perfect on it by any means. I do try to make sure that I'm not leaving things unmended as much as possible because I've very much had that experience from an early age. And I had some other experiences that are similar too throughout my life where just people were gone that were very important to me very quickly. And I think that has shaped the way that I try to interact with the people I really care about. And whether it's saying goodbye to the kids every day, even if I'm running late, or apologizing to my mom, which is probably the one I have to apologize to the most to, not to leave that unsaid because you might not get another chance. And you don't want to live with that. It's always something that I think about because I have that very visceral experience of seeing my dad in the kitchen and going to school and then you don't get to see him again. You don't get the goodbye. So I think that's important to think about in life. I have a good friend Blake who is part of a group I'm in that does legacy letters and his came from a experience even more dramatic than mine, but that you don't know that you'll get to write these things at a future time. So write them today, right? Don't delay on that. If you want to do something for somebody you love or show gratitude, make that call today. If there's somebody that you owe a bit of gratitude to that you haven't told that to before, don't wait, right? Pick up a phone and call them today.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a loss for words. We talk a lot about that life is precious and enjoy every moment. It's a little bit hard to do that on a daily basis in a practical way. It's just hard to do that because I think we all get busy. We all get bogged down with all the stuff that we are doing. But it's really important to remember that and to stop and think about that. I know you've been talking about these fears that you have, fear around loss and scarcity of money. Was there anything that helped you overcome these fears or cope with them?
Yeah, I think around money is a great one, right? It's taken me a long time to get here.
Mm.
But I've never been a spender. And part of that is I had this fear of not having enough money and remember some of that as a kid. And that's probably good in some ways, but bad in others. And I hate giving. And so this is the one I will talk about for a minute. But I absolutely hate gifts. I don't like giving gifts. I don't like receiving gifts. I dislike the whole gift world. And I make jokes about this sometimes, like birthdays. Like, why should I get a gift on my birthday? I did literally nothing. I just came into being. Like, you should give birthday gifts to like the moms. Like they birthed me. My mom should get a present every year, not me. But anyways, I'm just not a big fan of the whole gifting idea of things. It's not my love language. I don't gravitate to it. And I really don't try to get better at this either, except for one caveat on it. But that one stayed with me, right? And that's clearly this scarcity mindset. I don't think you should just give stuff away, and I don't get enjoyment from it because to me, gifting is almost like a personal loss. And when somebody gives me a gift, I worry about their loss on it, right? What they had to sacrifice or give up to give me something. And then my enjoyment of it is gone. It doesn't work well for me. Now, flip side, my mom is a huge gift giver. She loves giving gifts, and it's her way to show, right, what she's sacrificed for and to show the people that are around her that she loves them more than she loves, right, money and stuff and those things. But she shows that through gift giving. And it's very important for her. So she does get annoyed with me. She calls me Grinch around Christmas because like I don't love this whole thing. But what I've tried to get better at is that part of the conversation that it provides joy to others. So when I'm being grumpy about this, it's like ruining how others feel, which is not my desired outcome here. That's one where I've tried to just accept the fact that other people have different ways of expressing their gratitude and love, and that I should embrace that. And if that's how you show your love to others, that is a great thing and you should do it.
Yeah. That's a great point. I want to close by addressing one of the retirement planning lessons from the book, and that is number 104, health is wealth, where you and Bonnie talk about, investing in your health so you can enjoy your wealth. And that's a lot about what this podcast is about. So how are you investing in your health personally?
Yeah, I do a lot of different things. Where should we start of this? So I've always been an athlete for my whole life, or now I guess I'm like a retired athlete, whatever you want to say. But being active, and I mostly go to yoga now. I've tried to go to lower impact things. So I do yoga about 5 times a week at 6 a.m. I do think sleep is super important. And I'm part of a group called Rebel Dads, and we talk a lot about health benefits that are out there. And one of the ones I've been focused on is like getting less light around you when you sleep. I've
Mm,
had the blackout shades, but you don't really notice until you walk around like houses, like all these little like LED lights that are on everywhere. And so I've been more focused on trying to either unplug and or get rid of a lot of that stuff. You sleep better with less light.
mm.
So getting good sleep. I stopped drinking any hard alcohol about 6, 7 years ago now too. And for me, that was a good thing. I know others who are fine with it. If you look at some of the research around alcohol consumption, right, generally speaking, the big like meta reports are always that there's almost no good level. If you go a little further in, that the people in the top 20% of like physical well-being and athleticism actually show almost zero impact of alcohol, whether they drink or don't drink. So there's some interesting, and everybody should decide their own thing there. But like for me, reducing that significantly was an important thing. I don't drink at the house really either. It's not been something I wanted to model for the kids. Those are really important. I think finding communities that you can spend time with and socialize, however that may be, is really important. That's probably the one area I argue on the flip side, right? I'm an attorney, so I can argue two sides of everything. Is I think alcohol is actually very good for socialization. It's why it's existed in societies for so long and comes with weddings and celebrations across the board, is people have found it as a bonding kind of mechanism. And so I think there's value in however you decide to socialize, but I think that's really important. I think food for me is still one that I don't eat a lot of sweets, but I still challenge, I love food. That's like the one health one that if I still have some tweaks to go, I definitely want to see improvement on. But I don't know who did this originally, but I'll wrap up this part with this health is wealth mantra. And I've seen it online in some other talks, but the long and short of it is if you ask somebody like Diana, if I could make you the richest person in the world tomorrow, would you do it? And a lot of people, I don't know, yes or no, that maybe you don't want it, but would you like to have a lot more money tomorrow?
I would say no.
You don't want any more money. That's
I
good.
think it's just too complex
Yeah.
for
But is
me.
there some amount of more money you would want tomorrow?
Some, yes,
Yeah.
not to be the richest person though.
Okay. That's good. Like at 10 million, I don't know, some amount, but there's probably some amount of money everybody would want more, or
Sure.
most people.
Yeah.
But then if you told the person, okay, let's just say yours is 10 million, but you only had one more day to live, would you do it?
No
Well,
way.
nobody would, or almost nobody. Maybe somebody would say yes. But I think the answer, generally speaking, is no. And so what that tells you, though, is that living is more important than any amount of money. And I think that's really powerful because what that tells you is your health and being here is more important than being the richest person or having that retirement savings goal that you wanted of 10 million more dollars. And so if you can keep that in front of your mind, like you probably make slightly different decisions that look like life is more important than the extra dollars. And if I'm costing myself days in life for an extra $100,000 or $1 million, is that really, would I really make that trade off? If it was a direct trade off and I had to make the decision between the two, if the answer is no, then I think you should take a deep look at that. But it's always been a powerful reminder to me of the difference between being alive and health and wellness and having a bunch of money.
Yeah, that is a really interesting way of looking at it. Great. And that's a great tool for kind of how advisors should think about working with clients and having that compassion and empathy when working with clients and thinking about what's important to folks in life. And there's so many great nuggets in this book. I was reading it and thinking a lot of things in here for myself, for my own retirement planning purposes. A lot of great nuggets in there for that. And I've got a copy right here on my desk and encourage everyone to get a copy. It's a great tool book for working with clients. And I'm afraid we're just about out of time. I'd like to thank my guest, Jamie Hopkins, for being on the podcast. Jamie, thank you so much and for just opening up and being so vulnerable here.
And thanks for having me on. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. If you'd like to reach out to Jamie, you can do so by emailing him at jhopkins@bmt.com. And you can check out the book at yourretirementsketchbook.com. If you have a struggle and you wish to share your experiences and help others in similar situations, please feel free to reach out to me at diana.britton@informa.com. I'd like to thank you for listening to The Healthy Advisor. If you've not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This is Diana Britton reminding you that where there's healing, there is hope. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to The Healthy Advisor, a podcast focused on advisors' personal well-being and healing. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of wealthmanagement.com. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice. Always seek the advice of your healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your particular situation.